Welcome Mercer Island community, and thank you for taking time to watch this video. We are steadfast and resolute in our commitment to preventing sexual assaults and establishing appropriate boundaries. Through education, awareness, training, collaboration, and consistency, we will disrupt the troubling statistic nationally that predicts 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be victims of sexual assault before age 18. For those who are gender diverse or non-binary, there's even greater risk. The timing of this video is even more important given that April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Alleged and confirmed cases of sexual assault, particularly ones involving our staff, have been difficult for our entire community, our staff, and our leaders. We're choosing to tackle this issue head on and create safer environments for everyone. We hope this webinar meets the focus and its intention, which is to update our entire community on the progress the district and the Student Safety and Wellbeing Committee are making to ensure each school reflects the culture of safety that we expect. The Student Safety and Wellbeing Committee was formed this past fall. It's met 5 times as a full committee with another 9 meetings between 3 subgroups. This committee is made up of students, staff, parents, administrators, community members, and even regional partners from King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, UW Harborview Abuse and Trauma Center, OSPI, and the Puget Sound Educational Service District. This committee will continue in the years to come, making recommendations to our school district, our school board, our community, and Presidium, a third-party organization who will be performing a full-scale audit for our practices and our procedures and our trainings, followed by a detailed report to promote improvement. You'll be hearing today from several members of our committee in this webinar to provide more details on our work. With that, I'd like to introduce you and thank our student moderator today, Reese Hardisty.
Thank you, Dr. Rundle. Early on, this committee established 4 priorities, and we will touch on each of them to learn more about the work the committee has been doing to support these priorities. The larger committee has already met 5 times, and each of the priority subcommittees has already met at least 6 times. The 4 priority areas are students, professional boundaries, reporting and follow-up, and learning and training. Now let's talk to the students. I'm here with Wilder and Kavya. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Tell us a little bit about your group. How did it come together and who is on it?
Yeah, so the students in this group are Anusha, Maya, Kavya, and myself.
And we're supported by our co-facilitators, Ms. Denman and Mr. Steen. They help guide our conversations and connect our ideas to the larger committee's work while making sure that this stays student-driven.
Can you tell us a little bit about what the student group has been working on?
Well, our first project was, and one of the main things we've done, is the student safety survey. It's something we designed and shared with the student body around late December, early January, and we created it because we wanted to better understand how students are actually feeling, especially when it comes to safety, boundaries, and reporting concerns. And we've had over 400 responses split very evenly across the grades, which gave us a really strong set of data to work with. And one of the biggest takeaways was that a lot of students aren't fully clear on what boundaries cross the line. We also found that there's some hesitancy around reporting, whether that's because of a fear of retaliation or concerns about follow-through. These results have been important to help guide not just our work, but conversations across other subcommittees.
Yeah, and building off of that, another major project we're working on is a student-produced video focused on grooming and boundary awareness. So the goal of this is to make something that actually resonates with students. So we're creating a roughly 10-minute, more cinematic video that follows a realistic and relatable scenario. The idea is to help students better recognize what grooming can look like in real situations while also making it clear what they can report. We're collaborating with the Student Senate on this and using resources from outside sexual assault centers to make sure that everything is accurate and responsible. We're also planning to have the final video reviewed by experts before sharing it. Overall, we want it to be engaging but also genuinely informative, something students will actually pay attention to and learn from.
What has been one of the overall impressions of the larger committee?
I was really impressed by the diverse group of perspectives that was assembled. It's been really interesting to see all the things we've looked at deconstructed through so many lenses. And there's so much drive from everyone there to make a positive change in our community that I feel like we have the potential to make a real impact this year. and to hopefully continue that work in years to come.
And I think what stands out most is that there's a genuine effort to include student voices in a meaningful way. It doesn't feel superficial, but it feels like adults actually want to understand and improve things, which makes the work feel a lot more impactful. It feels like we're really building something that can lead to a lasting change.
Thank you, Wilder and Kavya, for your time. Now let's talk to the next priority subcommittee about professional boundaries. I'd like to welcome Stephanie Burnett, our school board president who chairs the Professional Boundaries Subcommittee. Stephanie, tell us a little bit about the Professional Boundaries Subcommittee. Who is on it and what are you working on?
Our subcommittee brought together a strong mix of parents, community members, students, and staff. We've been focused on District Policy 5253, which addresses maintaining professional staff-student boundaries, and the procedures that flow from that policy. This framework sets the tone for how professional boundaries are understood and upheld across the district. So it's critical that it clearly defines what behaviors fall outside appropriate staff-student relationships.
What would you say are some of the highlights of your work so far?
There are several key areas we've focused on. One important area is the concept of boundary invasions, which exist on a spectrum. These can range from something that may seem minor, like giving a student a cup of coffee, to much more serious violations, such as inappropriate physical contact. As we work to strengthen the district's existing policy, we spent significant time focusing on the concept of grooming behaviors, like building exclusive or secretive relationships with a student, gradually increasing emotional reliance, offering special privileges, or attempting to isolate a student from peers or other adults. Our goal has been to ensure that any behavior that could reasonably be interpreted as grooming is clearly identified and explicitly prohibited in Mercer Island schools. We also made substantial recommendations related to technology and communication. The updated language addresses modern risks, including communications via social media, gaming platforms, and using mechanisms such as disappearing messages. It prohibits staff from friending or following students and limits online communication between staff and students to district-approved platforms, which can be monitored. Any communications via non-district platforms, even for school business, must be approved by administrators, and parents or guardians must be included on or have access to those communications. This is an important step in aligning district policies with the many options for communicating online that exist today. Another major focus has been on one-on-one interactions and visibility. We've strengthened expectations that staff-student interaction should be observable and interruptible whenever possible, and we've added guidance around visibility safeguards like window doors or open settings. We also spent time on several other critical areas, including staff socializing with students outside of school-sponsored activities, gift giving, favoritism, and conflicts of interest, particularly in situations where staff may interact with students through outside roles such as tutoring or college counseling. Physical touch was another area of thoughtful discussion. It's important to set clear and intentional boundaries. There are situations where appropriate physical contact is necessary for student safety or well-being, but at the same time, the policy must be unequivocal in prohibiting any inappropriate contact. And finally, we've identified a few areas where we're looking forward to additional input from Presidium following their evaluation. That feedback will help us refine and finalize our recommendations before presenting them to the district and the school board.
Thank you, Director Burnett. Now let's learn a little bit about the Reporting and Follow-Up Committee. Today, I'm joined by our School Board Director, Cristina Martinez. Thank you for being here, Cristina.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a bit about the Reporting and Follow-Up Subcommittee. Who is on it and what are you working on?
So the Reporting and Follow-Up Subcommittee is brought together students, parents, staff, and community partners. And what I really appreciate was how constructive and thoughtful the conversations were. We've been focused on two closely connected areas: how students and families report concerns, and what happens after a report is made. What has been really clear through the work is that those two areas are really connected. So it's been looking on how the system works from a student perspective.
Gotcha. What have been some of the highlights of your subcommittee's work so far?
We have made strong progress, and the way to think about it, the work is we are looking at strengthening the system and how the system works as a whole, not just individual tools. but everything connected from reporting to respond.
Can you tell me a little bit more about the See Something, Say Something app?
On the reporting side, we have a strong tool in place called with the See Something, Say Something app. But what we have heard pretty clear is that the access alone isn't enough. Awareness is still uneven, especially among parents. And from students, it's not just about knowing how to report, it's whether they feel comfortable doing and trusting that what happens next. We also heard that it's not always clear which pathways to use. So part of the work has been thinking about how to make it simpler and easier to navigate. We spent time looking closely to anonymous reporting because for many students, that's the only way that makes reporting possible in the first place. So it is sometimes anonymous reports, it makes it harder to follow up and connect, and this is what we have been working on, what happens after that. So the district is looking on ways on how to close the loop and communicating and creating a dialogue with the reporting, but at the same time without losing the portion of being anonymous report. So it is a balance on being able to follow up on the report, but also creating trust for the students to actually feel safe to make the report happen.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times families and students don't always know what's happening behind that use, and so that's definitely an important concept. So we've talked a little bit about the reporting. Can you tell me a little bit more on the follow-up aspect of this?
So the focus has been how to make follow-up more coordinated and more understandable. Not changing the formal process by itself, but making sure that the experience around the system is more consistent, more transparent, and centered on student support. We also spend time thinking about how the system works for different students, including students with disabilities, students that have English as a second language, or students that might not feel that comfortable navigating a complex process. That's where communication and trusted relationships really matter. One of the ideas that actually came out of this process on the follow-up portion is having a student advocate. And the student advocate might be, is an idea that came with the help with the Mercer Island Youth and Family Services and KSARC, is King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, on having somebody that will help advocate with the student through the follow-up process. Because, yes.
So thank you so much for sharing. It sounds like the work that both the Boundaries Group and the Reporting and Follow-Up Subcommittees has been doing will really feed into the student learning and staff training area. Let's hear from them next. Welcome back, Dr. Rundle.
Thank you very much, and just thanks for doing this. Really appreciate it.
I'm very excited to be here. Okay, so you've been leading the Student Learning and Staff Training Subcommittee. Can you tell us a little bit about this committee?
Yeah, it's a great committee. First off, just the people who are on it have been fantastic. We have health teachers from IMS and MIHS. We have parents. We have a community member who was even a staff member here in the past. We have administrators, students, and so it's been a great mixture similar to the other groups that we've talked about today. And, you know, we've really been focused on two parts, and it was interesting because a third one was added. So I'll start with the first task, which was really trying to get a sense of what do students learn about boundaries and about sexual assault and molestation and how, you know, what are we teaching in school? And so that goes all the way back to elementary. And we added, right before COVID, into our second step curriculum, we added in safe touching units, both for first grade and third grade, knowing that there's some health in fifth grade and they get a chance to see some. But we really focused on 6-8 in the health classes, then 9-12 in the health classes, and talked about, you know, what do they learn? What don't they learn? What are the challenges? And the teachers being able to share, you know, it's not a lot of seat time. Mm-hmm. So what do we need to do differently? Then we moved into, okay, how do we train staff?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And being able to share, what is compliance versus what do we really think we need to do even more? And that's where we have had some great conversation. And then something that emerged, as I said, that wasn't part of the beginning was parents and community.
Right.
How do we do a better job partnering with our community partners and our parents so that they can be part of the conversation and we can think about being consistent from what are we telling our kids, how are we training staff, and then what tools are we giving parents and community partners? So that's really been the focal point of our work.
Yeah, and I think what you said about getting to parents as well is really important, and also starting young. I do think that is maybe a topic that isn't discussed a lot because it's uncomfortable and it's tricky to talk about and address, as we've been forced to, this year, and it's been an issue that's been going on forever. But how do we address that in a way that reaches parents, students, kids when they're younger, and then integrate it into what's being taught in the school system as well?
And that's where our community partners, King County Sexual Assault Resource Center, UW Harborview Assault Support Center, OSPI, the PSESD, I think they've been great voices because they're on the committees as well. But also I think going forward as we think about that to help us with that dynamic with our parents and our community partners. So I'm with you.
Yeah, and on that topic, can you tell us a little bit about what's next for this committee and just the overall mission around student safety and well-being? I know you touched on it a little bit already, but do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, I think as I opened the presentation today and the video today of, the next steps are the true commitment to the work ahead and to improving the safety and security and well-being of our entire environment and to make sure that everyone. So up next will be continued work by this committee. We are formulating not just what we've done as committees, but what are recommendations. And they're going to be recommendations both for the district, and our committee will have a chance to come together with the school board in May and have a conversation and share what we've been up to. But we're also going to be working at the end of April this month with a group called Presidium. And I messaged the community to some extent about this, but it's a third-party group who's coming in with 30 years of experience doing work in nonprofits, in schools, in universities, really doing a full autopsy, if you will, of your system to say, are your policies and procedures in place? Are they being followed? How are you training staff? How are you working with students? How are you working with your partners? And then they'll provide us with a report. So they'll be on site April 27th, 28th, and 29th. 28th, 29th, and 30th. And they're going to do building walkthroughs. They're going to do interviews with staff, interviews with parents, interviews with students. And then their report will come mid-June.
Okay.
And the committee then will have a chance to see the report. And then they will do their whole report to our school board at the end of June. We'll take the time over the summer to say, here's what our committee worked on, here's what Presidium is recommending, and then come out with an action plan of what are going to be our next steps next year based on their recommendations. And I anticipate there's going to be things they're going to affirm that we're doing well, and there's going to be things that are going to be holes that we can fix that might be low-hanging fruit, and there's going to be other things that are going to take time. So this committee isn't a one-year thing. It's going to go on, and we'll see some attrition through the committee, but gosh, the commitment's been great from everyone on it.
Yeah, and I think that as students, watching the video and myself, it's really reassuring to hear that there are actions, being taken that are physical actions with both having this organization come in here, doing walkthroughs through the building. I think that's important that students know that and are educated on the fact that this is happening because, I think we all get caught up a little bit in our own things, and sometimes it's just a lack of knowledge and information and not knowing what's being done exactly. So good to hear that there are very concrete steps being put in place to improve the systems in the future.
Yeah, I appreciate you recognizing that, and we know that some of those early, even that webinar we did with the students, and just they were all attempts to start to build confidence, but it's through action, right? Not words, and that's what we're trying to come up with. Is the very best for our students to make sure that Mercer Island High School, Islander Middle School, our 4 elementary schools are doing everything we can to support our students, and then what benefit can we have on the community with youth soccer, youth football, youth lacrosse, Boys Scouts, Girl Scouts, learning from them. It's all, it's one community. We got to work together.
Yeah, it's all interconnected.
It is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time and for coming on here today. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Appreciate you doing this.
Yeah.